Good evening. This week in math, we are going to be doing a lot of work with mixed numbers and improper fractions. So I'm going to take a couple minutes this evening and show you how to convert back and forth between a mixed number and an improper fraction. So we're going to start off and look at each type of fraction and talk a little bit about what it looks like. So a mixed number is basically a fraction, but it's also paired with a whole number. If you remember in class, we talked about how when we're dealing with most fractions, if you looked at a number line and you looked at the numbers 0 and 1 on a number line, most of the fractions that we're dealing with in class are going to go in between it. So, for example, half would be right there. If you had 2/3, it would be there, 1/4, and so on and so on. So what a mixed number then is going to do is going to put your number somewhere else on a timeline. So for our 3.5, if we're looking at the timeline, instead of looking here between the 0 and the 1, we'd actually scoot down. So you have 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, and that's where we're going to find our mixed number. So really what it's doing is, by using a mixed number, it's expanding the size of our timeline that we're using. So there's two ways to express this. You can use the mixed number, but then you can also use an improper fraction. And both of these are actually the same. So 3.5 and 7/2 are the same. And we're going to start off, and I'm going to talk about how to go from a mixed number to an improper fraction, and then I'll also show you how to go from an improper fraction to a mixed number. So there's basically two strategies you can use when you're going back and forth between the two. You can, first of all, use pictures, which are really clear and really easy to use. And then you can also use math operations. So to start with a picture, I'm going to go ahead and draw out my 3.5. And remember, when you're drawing a picture of a fraction, you want to keep your pictures the same. So I'm going to draw this week circles. And since my denominator today is a half, I'm going to split all my circles in half. So I have one whole, two holes, three holes, and then a half. So zooming out a little bit, you can see that I have 1, 2, 3 holes and a half. So that's 3.5. So how you get it to an improper fraction then is, you're actually going to, instead of counting the holes, you're going to count the parts of a fraction. So this is 1, 2 halves, 3 halves, 4 halves, 5 halves, 6 halves, and 7 halves. So that's where I get my 7 from. And then my denominator is going to stay the same. So that's what it's going to end up looking like. Okay? So that's the picture way to go. If you want to do a mixed number to an improper fraction and you want to use math operations, what you're going to do is just simply write your mixed number, and you're going to add in two different math operations. You're going to put a time sign in between the denominator and the whole number. You're going to put a plus sign in between the whole number and the numerator. And then, using your order of operations, remember that multiplication comes before addition. You're going to multiply the 3 times the 2 first, which is 6, and then add the 1, which is 7. And then you're just simply going to slide your numerator over so that it's 7/2. So those are the two different ways you can go from mixed number to improper fraction. Both are perfectly acceptable, and as you're going through and you're working on your math this week, you need to use what you're comfortable with. So going the opposite way this time, if you're given an improper fraction and you want to move to a mixed number, here's how you're going to go. I always look at the denominator first, And so in this case, I'm dealing with halves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start drawing my pictures. And so I'm going to put them again as halves, and I'm going to count them as I draw them. And I want to count to the numerator. So my picture, it's split into the number on the denominator. I'm counting to my numerator. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I get to 7, and I still have part of 1 left over, so I don't want to erase it. I want to leave it there because that's going to come in kind of handy here in a second. What I want to do then is every shape where I was able to count both halves, I want to go ahead and color in. The shapes where I was only able to count part of it, I want to color in the part that I counted. So as I zoom out here now, you can see that I have 1 whole shape counted, 2 whole shapes counted, 3 whole shapes counted. So that's going to be my whole number in my mixed number. I then am going to look at the picture that I only partially colored in. And in this case, my fraction is 1/2. So there's my mixed number. So that's the first way to go, is drawing a picture. And again, I drew the pictures. I made the pictures fit my denominator first. I made them all halves, and then I counted to the number of halves I needed, which were 7. And then colored them in, got my 3 wholes and my 1/2. Okay? All right, last way for tonight. If you want to do math operations with going from improper fractions to mixed numbers, you're going to take the denominator and you're going to see how many times it goes into the numerator. So 2 goes into 7 3 times, and that gives us 6. We're then going to take that 6 that we got from taking the 2 into 7 3 times, and we're going to subtract. So 7 minus 6 is 1, and then I'm just going to slide the denominator over. So that's my 3.5. And again, either which way, whether you want to do it using the math operations, whether you want to draw it and use the pictures, either strategy is fine as long as you are comfortable and you are successful with it. I hope this helps. Thank you and have a great week.